Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Have you picked up Kowabana Volume 9 yet? It's available now. If you're ready for another terrifying round of scares straight out of Japan, head over to Amazon and pick up your copy right now. We've got shrines, curses, ghosts, angry ancestors, abandoned buildings, terrifying schools, and much more, so don't miss out. This week, we're looking at some more terrifying tales set in and around Japan's many mountains. First up, we have a group of friends who decide to spend the night at a small hut on top of a local mountain. The general area has various haunted locations, but when they reach the hut, the group are unprepared for what actually awaits them. Find out why in Mystery of the Mountain Hut. This story takes place on Mount T in Fukuoka Prefecture, which I'm sure locals will immediately recognize. At the foot of the mountain, you can find S Cemetery, which is one of the most famous ghost spots around, and all of the local kids go there to hang out. I've also been there myself, although nothing weird happened while I was there. When I was in high school, my group of friends got to talking about camping somewhere really nice. Why don't we visit the hut at the top of Mount T and have a barbecue there? Someone suggested. This hut was open to anyone for use, but all it had was a small hearth inside and some chairs around it. However, we were just messing around, so we didn't take tents or sleeping bags or anything with us, just some food we'd bought. We decided to set out during the night from S Cemetery. The plan was to leave around 10 p.m. So until then, we all went fishing in the ocean nearby. Then we took the fish we caught along with some meat, vegetables, etc., and climbed the mountain with our cooking utensils. About 30 minutes after we started climbing, someone suggested we tell scary stories as we walked. Everyone was in agreement, and so we listened to some terrifying tales as we climbed. I was all worked up from the scary stories and hanging out with my friends late at night, so I wasn't especially tired by the time we reached the hut. Immediately, we set about gathering some wood for a fire, but it was dark and we couldn't see very well. We shone the torches we brought with us, but they were merely tiny lights in the darkness. Plus, I was starting to get more and more afraid, so I couldn't explore too far from the hut. There were no trees nearby that we could use for firewood, so we played rock, scissors, paper, and the loser had to go find some. As a result, 2 friends and I were chosen. As we went searching a short distance from the hut, one of those friends called out, "Hey, there's a shrine here!" We ran over and there was a tiny shrine there dedicated to something. The place creeped me out, especially after all the scary stories I just heard, so we quickly picked up some wood and turned to rush back to the hut. At that moment, I heard something creak behind me. I turned around before I could stop myself, but immediately averted my eyes. There had been no one near the shrine just moments ago, and yet a shadow stood there in the darkness. It must have come from something our lights were shining on, but I couldn't see anything around us. Surprised, my friend shone his torch around the area, trying to find what was causing the shadow, but couldn't find anything or anyone. Scared, we all ran back to the hut. I was relieved to see light leaking out of the windows of the hut, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that something might be chasing us, so I continued running. That was when I smelt something delicious and saw smoke coming from the chimney. "What the hell are you guys doing? We went out to grab you firewood and this is how you repay us? By starting without us?" My friend A said angrily as he went inside. There was already a fire going and they were cooking meat above it. "No, you guys were taking too long, so we gathered some small branches and found an old calendar over there and started a fire," one of the other guys said. I thought it was new at first, but the dates are over 10 years old, so I figured, why not? 10 years old? Didn't you say that people don't come here very often? It's hard to believe no one has been here for over 10 years, not even to clean the place up, A said angrily again, and then stormed over to look at the calendar. Someone must have picked it up when they were camping and then left it here. A grabbed the rolled up calendar, but then he screamed. Everyone turned to look at him, and just as we were about to ask what was wrong, we suddenly understood why he screamed. Several of the pages were covered in tiny black dots. The more he flicked through it, the larger and more dots there were. They looked almost reddish black. Holy crap! A screamed and threw the calendar away. Then he mentioned the shadow we'd just seen outside. This place is messed up, man. It creeps me out. Everyone froze and couldn't move. The scary stories we'd told on the way up certainly didn't help the mood. You're just seeing things, B said. There's no way. And those spots are just dirt. It's over 10 years old, man. Of course it's gonna look dirty after 10 years in the rain and such. He went to pick the calendar up, but then A said, "Read it then." We didn't understand what he meant, but B picked the calendar up with a laugh and unrolled it. What? B then dropped the calendar with a small squeak. Nah, there's no way. This has got to be someone's idea of a prank. His face went pale and his eyes opened wide, like something had possessed him. Naturally, nobody wanted to look at the calendar themselves. What's wrong? What is it? Everyone asked. You'll understand when you see it, was all A said. B froze on the spot and didn't move. I was kinda curious, and we had come all this way. I didn't want to go home so soon, so I went and picked the calendar up. I flicked through a few pages, and the moment I saw it, a chill ran down my spine, and my hands trembled. I almost fell to the ground. Ugh! What the hell is this? I screamed in a loud voice, trying to shake off the fear I felt, and everyone jumped and looked at me. Seriously? What does it say? Someone asked. I told you to look for yourself, A snapped, and then silence filled the room again. You'd better take a look for yourselves, I managed to spit out, and so everyone else gathered to take a look. I didn't want to touch it again, so I used a stick to open the pages. However, perhaps thanks to the black spots, the pages were kind of stuck together, so I had to use 2 sticks to turn them, one by one. It was one of those common daily calendars, about B4 size, with a page for each day. It wasn't that small, so I could hold one page open with the stick, while using the other to turn. The black spots started around the date marked August 19th. It seemed to have oozed from the spot where 20 was, and when I opened to that page, another friend screamed. 20. This was the first day I cut my wrists. Those who see it will be cursed, it said in tiny letters. No way! Who the hell would write something like this? Another friend cried. Is there more? Another friend took the stick and then tried to turn to the next page, but it wouldn't open. The next page to open was the 24th. 24. Blood spouted out of Mayumi-chan's head. It dripped onto the calendar, and it turned black, it said. What the hell? My friend said and kept turning the pages. The pages up until October were stuck together, and on the next page that opened, there was nothing but a dark red stain. There was no other writing, and everyone gathered around the fire muttering about what the hell it was. How much of that is in there? It doesn't make any sense, A muttered. You reckon you can turn it page by page? B asked, anger in his voice. No way. Just leave it be. Who said that? You're the one who's scared, so don't attack me, A replied. Tension filled the air. C, who could not read the room, suddenly suggested, why don't we play rock, scissors, paper then? Everyone bar B erupted. Maybe that was a good thing, because everyone's fear eroded and slowly things calmed down. It's even scarier when everyone is quiet, C said. So come on, let's all look at it together. They're just trying to scare us, using something that looks like blood, right? It's totally gonna have something at the end like, and now I'm standing right behind you. C tried to reassure us all before using his bare hands to flick through the pages. He managed to get open the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, but there was nothing but black dots on them. He was unable to open the 25th, but when he got the 26th open, it was just covered in black and we couldn't read anything. He opened up until September 2nd, but there was nothing on them but black. However, on September 3rd, there appeared to be some dark red letters mixed in. 3. Mayumi-chan went first. She screamed as I carved the whole time. 4. Mayu-chan, welcome back. You've returned. She twitched as I put her back together. 5. Are you still watching? Will you keep watching? Outside. It was creepy, but also just like C said. Come on, this is so fake. It's just like C said. Everyone agreed with a laugh. It's not even that good. 6. Mayumi-chan, Mayumi-chan, Mayumi-chan. That was all it said. 7. Not yet? 8. How about now? 9. Is someone watching? I want to ask. 10. Hey, who is Mayumi-chan? This sentence was suddenly written in large letters. They've lost their mind, A said. Yeah, they're crazy, everyone agreed. 11. That's enough. 12. Why me? 13. I'm going to kill myself today. I'm going to hang myself. Maybe at the shrine, the mountain, the cemetery. I wonder where would be a good place. I'll take Mayu-chan with me too. Whoever finds this calendar, make sure you check December 24th. Although, I'll be dead, it said. Everyone laughed. And there it is. I told you! I told you! We opened up to December 24th. It was full of words and kanji that didn't make any sense. Then, on December 25th, it said in small letters, After I killed Mayumi-chan and Mayu-chan, I burned them in the hearth. Dig there. Dig there. I chopped Mayu-chan's head off and left it at the shrine. I chopped Mayumi-chan's legs off and left them behind the shrine. I plan to stay there forever myself. This isn't to scare you. It's just a diary. I will curse you. I will die and curse you. I'm no longer alive, so no one can hear my prayers. I will curse you. The handwriting on this page only looked like someone had lost the plot. It was good. Everyone laughed, but still, the word curse was creepy. Let's go home, A suddenly said. But it was after midnight and nobody was brave enough to return the way we'd come with just our torches, so nobody agreed. Let's just wait here till morning, someone said. Here? Seriously? After all that? B said this time. We should go, right now, both A and B said. No way! I can't walk around out there, others argued. We ended up deciding to wait in the hut until morning. Nobody had the energy to go through with the barbecue, so we just chatted to distract ourselves until morning arrived. But 10 or 20 minutes later, we started to hear someone yelling, "Hey!" outside. We all jumped and then fell silent, bracing ourselves for what might follow. "Hey! Hey! Hey!" was all we could hear, but it kept going on and on. "Maybe it's an animal," one of my friends suggested. Everyone agreed, but once we started talking again, this time something started banging on the rear of the hut. "Hey! Hey! Hey!" The screams were getting longer and longer, and then at the same time, something started banging on the back of the hut again. "What is that? Is someone out there hitting it?" B said, almost in tears, but next it started banging on the side of the hut instead. Then the door suddenly flung open. "Hey! What the hell are you doing in here?" A lone man stood at the door. We all froze, unable to comprehend what was happening right in front of us. "I was calling out to you. Didn't you hear me? Huh?" The man was holding an old bat, and we were all too scared to say anything. "Say something!" the man screamed, smashing the door with his bat. No, we were thinking of having a barbecue. We heard that nobody uses this hut, so here we are." "Are you stupid?" the man said. "This is my house." "We're so sorry. We didn't know. We didn't know this was actually somebody's private house." "It's not a private house. But I live here, and I got here first. Now get the hell out of here," he screamed, hitting the door with his bat again. We quickly gathered our things, and as we went to leave, the man spoke again. "If you've got any food on ya, leave it here." "This meat is burnt. Oh, what a waste. You dumb idiots." He pointed to the meat over the fire, screaming, so we left the fish and vegetables and then ran outside. As I passed the man, his eyes looked rather atrophied. It was probably a cataract, but one eye was pure white. Could he even see out of it? Once we were outside, we just stood there, unsure of what to do. But the darkness was worrying, so we quickly turned our lights on. We didn't know where to shine them, however, so we pointed them at our feet. We were discussing what to do when suddenly we heard a scream coming from the hut again. "Hey! You idiots! Didn't I just tell you to get out? Are you deaf? Hey!" the man screamed. We had no idea what was happening. I checked to see if anyone was missing and maybe still inside, but we were all there. "Are you taking the piss, huh?" the man screamed. "I'm not gonna go easy on you just because you're a girl." The moment he said that, we all fell to our knees. "Eh? What did he say just now?" A said to no one in particular. Then the man screamed again. "Huh? How should I know? Who the hell do you think you're talking to, huh? Don't think I won't hit a woman either." It was only us guys. There were no girls with us. But regardless, the man in the hut kept screaming about a woman. My legs were shaking with several layers of fear, but there was no time to think about what to do. I couldn't move, so I just looked at my friends. Perhaps if one person decided to run, the rest of us would follow. But no one was brave enough to be the first. At the very least, I certainly wasn't brave enough to take the lead in the darkness with only a small torch. However, when we heard the following words, naturally, we all ran away. "Mayumi? Who's that?" "Idiot! How the hell should I know?" the man said. At first, I didn't realize he was saying a name, but as the words kept coming, I soon realized what he must be saying. Mayumi. The moment I understood that, my body jump-started. "Mayumi? I told you I don't know who that is!" he screamed again, very clearly, and at that moment, we were all gone. "No way! There's no way!" B screamed, crying as we ran. Once we were a fair distance away from the hut, we all stopped to wait for A, who was a slow runner. "Wait, would ya?" he said, finally catching up to us. We took a short break to catch our breath. "Who the hell is Mayumi?" B muttered. "Who? What is Mayumi?" I was scared as well, of course. "Hey, shut up. Let's talk about it later, alright? But for now, shut up." But B continued muttering to himself anyway. After we'd caught our breath and taken a brief break, we started walking down the mountain again. We paid close attention to anything that might be following us, and we jumped at each and every sound. As we kept going, we passed the Jizo statue on the side of the road, and finally saw the lights of town down below. Relief washed over me at seeing the lights, and we all stopped at the Jizo to pray that none of us were cursed. "That's not a Jizo, is it?" D said. "Sure it is, but maybe it's a guardian," I said nervously. "Eh? Isn't Jizo supposed to protect us and ward against evil or something?" he asked. "I think he wards against evil, but maybe this is a substitute Jizo. Why?" D started taking a few steps back. "Don't scare me, man. I'm scared enough as it is," A yelled at him. "That's the cut foot Jizo," D said. "Its feet are cut off at the base." Everyone crouched down to check it. He was right. Its right foot was oddly missing. Several of the toy windmills next to the statue then started to spin in the wind. My eyes were drawn to them as they spun and rattled, and when I saw the letters Mayumi-chan underneath them, a chill ran down my spine. We started running right away to the road down below. Once we were off the mountain and back on the asphalt road, I could finally breathe again. Once we caught our breaths again, we decided to go to A's house, seeing as he lived the closest. It was 2 a.m. and the roads were rather quiet and empty. But still, when a figure started walking towards us as we walked along the cemetery, I panicked and started running again. I didn't see the person clearly, but for some reason, it looked like a girl, so I got goosebumps. "Don't look! Don't look!" I muttered as I ran. We arrived at A's house after that, and we all chatted about what happened until morning. B visited the hospital the next day, claiming that the ringing in his ears wouldn't stop. But other than that, nothing especially strange happened. After that, B claimed to have especially bad tinnitus and suffered from sleep paralysis as well. I think he was probably just trying to scare us, but he repeated it a lot. A woman stands by my bedside. Then, as she's being chopped up, she just keeps talking in front of me the whole time, he once said. But apparently that was the only strange thing that happened. So he was probably okay. When I told my older brother about the hut, he said there was nothing strange about it when he went a year or two earlier. They had a barbecue there and even went camping after. There was a magazine there, but nobody lived there, he said. I never heard about any supernatural happenings on Mount T itself, but S Cemetery at the foot of the mountain and the pass behind it are rather famous, so I try to avoid the mountain entirely now. Another friend of mine went there once with his friends, so I asked him if the Jizo statue was still there. Dude, that's an aborted baby Jizo statue. Did you guys mess with it? We didn't touch it, I said. Liar. Its eyes were gouged out and it was missing its feet, he said. But I never went to check for myself. Recently, Dee tried to find out if something might have happened there 10 years ago, although he only looked online and visited the library. But he couldn't find anything in particular. But there are a lot of accidents on the pass behind S Cemetery, and numerous people have died there, so maybe that has something to do with it. Next up, we're heading to Hokkaido and an old coal mine village. A group of junior high friends ride over there to have some fun and spend the night during their summer vacation, but they are grossly underprepared for what they're about to see there. Find out why in The Abandoned Showa Coal Mine. This story is about the Showa coal mine in Hokkaido. The Showa coal mine used to be a prosperous mining town with numerous residents, but when we went on a dumb camping trip there, it was abandoned. Sadaoka was the one who suggested we go, and although I didn't want to, Tamura was the stubborn type to never back down, and so the three of us went to spend a night at the abandoned mine. It would take us about 2 or 3 hours on bike to get there, and the reason I didn't want to go was because I had been there once before with my father by car. I had never heard any stories about the place being haunted, but it didn't look very nice, and I remember I had sleep paralysis that night as well. Anyway, putting that aside, it was supposed to be a night of fun during our summer holidays. I think it was around 2 o'clock when we arrived. There were lots of residential complexes and one-story houses. There were lots of broken windows, but some of the houses still looked usable. We threw rocks, breaking some of the windows, as we explored the houses. I think it had been several decades since anyone lived in those houses, but they still seemed to have signs of life in them. There were paper sliding doors and calendars on the walls and retro posters too. I don't know if it was a city or a village, but as I rode my bike through the outskirts of this tiny place, I stumbled across a strange building. It appeared to be a small shrine at first glance, but it was more like a full shrine in miniature, with something like a shrine gate, but it wasn't because it had 3 sides. There was a hinged door at the front, probably with whatever they venerated inside it. It looked like a large chest of drawers. Looking back on it now, we should have left it be, but Sadaoka took an interest in it and tried to open the door. It wasn't like it was covered in Shinto charms or anything, but after struggling with the door for a bit, it finally opened. Inside was full of zigzag-shaped paper, but it wasn't white, but rather red or black, probably darkened with age. What was even stranger was the writing on the back of these pieces of paper. I didn't know about it at the time, so I was just like, what the hell is this? And that was it. But looking back on it now, I realized that the writing was Korean Hangul characters. In front of that were some small drawers or boxes, and in front of that, some stones. The moment we opened it, I think all 3 of us got chills. That's what I think. We were silent for a while, and then Sadaoka closed the door. Or rather, he tried to, but the door must have been rotting or something, because it fell straight off. The place was abandoned, so we could just leave it there, but Sadaoka panicked or something and tried to put it back before we all fled back to the residential area, which was also abandoned, by the way. I got off my bike to rest and said, "Man, I was so scared I couldn't even look behind me." The other 2 agreed. Maybe it would be better to say I felt grossed out, rather than scared. It was kinda like that. After collecting ourselves, we started exploring again and having some fun. We found some wild strawberries that were tart but delicious. That was my only good memory of the place. Exploring was fun at first, But slowly the sun started to set, and then I grew frightened. Plus, there was what happened after. The whole place was quiet, except for the wind and the sound of insects. At first, we planned to sleep in a tent, but we found a Japanese-style room on the second floor of a house that was in rather good condition, so we decided that would be a better place to spend the night instead. Setting up the tent was a hassle, and we thought sleeping on the tatami mats would be better. We were camping, but it wasn't anything really serious. Dinner was just some bread and milk, and that was it. We played cards in the light of our torches and lanterns, and in the pitch black of night, we were absolutely terrified. "We can still go home by 11 if we leave now," I said. But Tamura's personality got the best of him, and he refused. I think it was around 9 o'clock at that time. "I need to crap," Sadaoka suddenly said. If what I saw during the day was correct, there was just a dirty Japanese-style toilet. "Oh well," Sadaoka said, and went to use it. The toilet was by the entrance, one room away from us. It was right there, but it felt so far away, so I was like, I'm never using that. Then a scream ripped through the area, followed by Sadaoka's footsteps as he returned. "Uah!" Tamura and I screamed when we heard him scream. His pants were still down around his ankles, and his face in the lantern light was pale as he trembled in fear. He was in no condition to speak, but here's what happened. He entered the toilet, unbuttoned his pants, and then went to squat down when he saw a boy looking at him through the small toilet window. He could see him clearly through the moonlight in the half-open window. I don't know what proof he had, but he claimed that the boy definitely wasn't a ghost, but a real live human face. "You idiot! We're on the second floor," Tamura said. I'll never forget the look on Sadaoka's face at that very moment. "Yeah, come on, let's go home," I said. This was an abandoned coal mining town deep in the mountains. We would have to go through some pretty scary mountain roads to get home, but I thought it was better than spending the night in a place like this. I was filled with regret from the bottom of my heart for coming to a place like this to camp. I just wanted to go home to Mum and Dad. But then, bang, bang. Something started banging on the front door. All three of us heard it. Sadaoka left the door open when he ran in, so we could just see the front door through it. Although I had no proof, it sounded like a person banging on the door. The three of us held hands. We were all trembling and my knees wouldn't stop shaking. I prayed that nothing would follow, but then something started banging on the door again. I thought my heart was about to burst. "Maybe somebody's really here," Tamura whispered. "We should get out of here." "Idiot," I said. "If it was a person, they'd call out when they knocked." Sadaoka just trembled. And then the banging stopped. But that didn't stop me from shivering in fear. The three of us huddled close, and then I realized something was strange about Sadaoka. The way he was shaking ever since he got back from the toilet was odd. It was like convulsions, and on top of that, he seemed to be trying to say something. "Sada, what are you doing? Calm down. You sound creepy talking like that," Tamura whispered to him angrily. I had no idea what was going on, but I thought I was about to go mad. Tamura was the only person I could rely on, but he looked like he was about to cry too. It was past 10 p.m, but we devised a plan to get the hell out of there and ride our bikes home. The only stuff we had with us was the tent, and it was still on our bikes. As long as we could get outside, we could run to our bikes and then get the hell out of there. But then, this time, I heard the sounds of people, a lot of people, walking around. At first it was small enough to ignore, but then it got louder and louder, until it was far too loud to pretend I couldn't hear it. I also thought I heard talking, but it didn't sound like Japanese, so I couldn't make out what they were saying, and it still sounded pretty far away. Thinking about it closer, it was probably just footsteps, but at the time, that was how I instinctively felt. Either way, the situation was uncertain, and we decided to get out of there before whoever or whatever it was got any closer. Sadaoka was still trying to spit something out. "Sada, listen, we're going home, okay? We're gonna run straight for the bikes, so pull yourself together, alright?" The two of us grabbed Sadaoka on each side and made our way towards the front door. I stopped thinking about everything so I didn't grow even more afraid and just prepared myself for the run to the bikes. "Alright, the three of us are gonna open the door, and then we run, okay?" We were supposed to open the door on 3, but most of the doors in Hokkaido are sliding doors, thanks to all the snow that piles up. Otherwise, you can't get out. So, the plan was to slam the door open on 3, but that plan instantly fell apart. As soon as we opened the door, we saw a man glaring at us with a terrifying expression on his face. We fell backwards onto the floor. Or maybe we went flying. I don't know. Then, I don't know why, but I got down on my knees and started apologizing. I'm sorry! Tamura soon joined me, but I couldn't hear Sadaoka's voice, so I don't know what he was doing. At any rate, I kept apologizing, and then suddenly, the presence disappeared. I nervously lifted my head, and the man was gone. The fear that had gripped me subsided somewhat, perhaps because of all the yelling I did. Tamura and I looked at each other, picked Sadaoka up again, and went downstairs. I wanted to rush, but Sadaoka was in no state for that, and it was an abandoned building after all, so we carefully took our time. The road outside was pretty much one straight line leading to that shrine we saw during the day on our left, and the right taking us towards the road that would lead us home. Something rustled to our left. The moonlight was the only thing that calmed my fears a little, but I felt like I was about to see something I really didn't want to. Then something strange happened. Sada completely came to his senses, and his eyes sparkled almost uncomfortably. "I won't let you leave." He said something like that, and for a moment, his expression looked terrifying. Then, when he tried to open his mouth to speak again, Tamura slapped him as hard as he could. I followed, slapping Sadaoka as hard as I could on his back. I think both of us innately understood what was going on. Looking back on it now, it was a great combination play. There was no such thing as Ni-chan back at the time, so we must have learnt that from somewhere else. I don't know if either slap had any effect on him, but Sadaoka's face returned to normal, like he was about to cry, and we got on our bikes and sped off right away. Tamura screamed a Buddhist chant, and I joined him with Namu Amida Butsu, and the two of us screamed in turn as we pedaled. On the way back, things finally calmed down, so I switched to our school song, but I kept singing in a loud voice as we pedaled. I did not want to turn around and look back for anything. I think we must have rode for an hour non-stop before we passed the mountains between the coal mine and our home. We were just too scared to stop. I mean, the road was gravel, and if I were to dramatize it, that hour was absolutely terrifying. And Tamura was yelling, "Stop it! Stop pulling!" So, the mountain roads at night were more than terrifying enough for me. At any rate, When I first saw the lights of the city, I almost cried. I was so happy. I think it was close to midnight, and there was a small car park or something with a single light. But to me it was like, light! Light! We stopped our bikes there and stopped to catch our breath. If we had phones on us, then we would have been able to call home, but nobody had cell phones back then. And even if we did, we certainly wouldn't have been in range out where we were. Sadaoka still looked like he was about to cry, but he was mostly back to normal. We had various options, but we decided to set our tent up there and spend the night in the parking lot. Light was the best protection, or something like that. I'm sorry if you were expecting something big after all that, but nothing else happened that night. I mean, I fell asleep right away. We were exhausted, both body and mind. And when I woke up the next morning, both Sadaoka and Tamura were sleeping soundly as well. When I went outside and saw the sunrise, the events of the night before seemed like a dream. I never saw Sadaoka or Tamura again after graduating from junior high. I left Hokkaido and I'm now writing this from somewhere in Kanagawa. It wasn't an experience that I really want to remember, and you are free to feel however you want about it. But it is a true story that really happened to me. And for our last story this week, we have a cautionary tale and a reminder that perhaps not all is ever forgotten. Find out why in We See a Lot of Them. This happened when I was working part-time at a particular chain store izakaya restaurant. I had a regular customer in his 40s by the name of M-san. I say regular, but he only started coming to the store regularly after I began working there. And for a month or so, he was there almost every single night. He appeared to be staying at a business hotel nearby, and he would usually come wandering in around close time and order his usual snacks. We quickly learnt each other's faces and became casual acquaintances. It was only a small store, usually full of old men, but he would come up and talk to me while I was washing dishes at the counter. I put out some steamed offal for him, as usual, and M-san started to tell me a creepy story. He told me how he messed up something at his work when he was younger, and he was then kidnapped by a person involved and taken to the damn construction site. He was then apparently locked away in a bunkhouse or something, away from the other workers. There were about 10 other people there in the same situation, and this place was somewhere way out in the mountains, away from civilization. Their meals were prepared by a woman in her 50s, but that food was delivered from a village nearby. So, one night, the only road leading to the construction site was blocked off by heavy rains. 3 whole days passed before the road was restored. They ran out of food during this time and everyone panicked. During this time, everyone turned their eyes towards the dog that the cook had been giving leftovers to. M-san didn't go into details, but apparently they ate the dog so that they didn't starve. It all started after that. Maybe animals just understand. When they look at me, dogs always start howling. They glare at me. I was vaguely aware that M-san was involved in shady dealings and such. But he was a customer, and it wasn't like I intended for us to become friends or anything. Yet it seemed he liked me, and when work was done for the night, he'd ask me if I'd like to go drinking with him. At first, I refused. But then one night, I was a little tipsy from the beer I'd been recommended, and when he asked me to go out again, I accepted. "There's a place where I'm rather well known," he said. M-san claimed to be a promoter who brought in talent from Southeast Asia, but in reality, he was a broker. The place he took me to was a Philippine pub. It was a rather racy place, but even though I was a poor student, I still enjoyed myself. M-san sang karaoke with the girls, and I tried hitting on all the girls with my broken English. There was one really cute girl there, but when I went to speak to her, M-san suddenly put the mic down and returned to our table. "Not her," he said. "She's my favorite." His smile didn't reach his eyes. A chill ran down my spine. Other people seemed to sense the mood shift as well, and the place fell quiet. I deflated and then quickly sobered up. M-san started singing again like nothing had happened. I watched him in silence, and that same girl then spoke to me in broken Japanese. "All the girls, they hate him." "Why?" I asked. "I don't know, but sometimes we see things." "See what?" "Dead girls. We see a lot of them." Then I realized something. M-san. It seemed the dogs weren't the only ones who understood exactly what he'd done. I'd like to give a huge thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Jojo and Baked Beans. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to pick up Kowabana Volume 9, available on Amazon right now, and visit our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.